What is up, everybody? Welcome back and welcome in. Just a quick Seahawks preview week 18. First of all, sorry I've been gone for so long. Had a little family vacation was on. So I was out of town Monday through yesterday. And then obviously kind of tough to make videos of everything that happened with Damar Hamlin. I didn't want to just get right back into okay, now we're talking football here and not focusing on that for a little bit because obviously some things are just far more important than the game itself, and certainly a young man's life is the number one priority, and that takes precedent over anything football related. Obviously, some good news is it sounds like the breathing tube's been removed and he's regained consciousness. So obviously, my continued thoughts and prayers are for Damar Hamlin, his entire family, entire Buffalo Bills fans, everybody that knows him personally, and just people that are praying for him in general. So I think that is great news, and hopefully that young man is going to be able to make a full recovery. But we do have some football coming up tomorrow, and if you're a Seahawks fan, obviously we have a very big game tomorrow, two big games tomorrow, possibly, as the Seahawks will host the Rams at 1:25 local time for Seattle, and they need to win that game to stay alive. Then they're going to need the Detroit Lions to knock off the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football. The first thing that everyone's talked about a little bit is, did the NFL kind of screw the Seahawks with this schedule here by having their game and the Detroit Green Bay game not at the same time? I'm frustrated by it. I think the game should be at the same time. A Seattle win does take away some of Detroit's incentive. I respect Dan Campbell. I respect the Lions. I don't think they'll roll over no matter what happens in that game. But you got to think, if there's some guys that are maybe 50-50 to play, and I don't know the Lions injury report, but they might sit. There are certain things. It's got to be deflating if you're a team. And I'm not saying Seattle's necessarily going to win. Seattle may lose, and it may not matter. But it would have to be deflating if you're 45 minutes from kickoff and you realize you're not going to the playoffs. It's not like the game's the next day where you can kind of take a minute, sit back, and go, you know what? We still have a chance to knock this Packers team out. This game, the Seattle game might not even be over by the time the Detroit game starts. It should be. That'd be 4 hours. But you know what I mean? It might still be in doubt. So that would maybe be a good thing for Detroit or for Seattle. But you know what I'm saying? It does take away some of the incentive. Now, also in the NFL's defense here, the goal of the league is to make money and what's going to get the best ratings. That's why Tennessee-Jacksonville is today and not tomorrow. Tennessee-Jacksonville, despite being for the division, does not have the draw and the impact that Aaron Rodgers has in trying to get into the playoffs. It just doesn't. It's going to grab better ratings. And it's against an upstart Lions team that is a rival that could also have a chance to get into the playoffs if Seattle loses Sunday afternoon. So I can't necessarily blame the league. Their goal is to make the most money possible. I would venture that they wouldn't mind Seattle losing to the Rams. So if you're someone that believes the games might be a little bit, not rigged, but not sure about it, then you're certainly thinking Seattle could lose that game based on that. But yeah, I don't think the league did Seattle any favors. However, Seattle's also put themselves in this situation. Had they beaten Carolina, beaten New Orleans, beaten Atlanta, then this wouldn't matter. They'd be winning in or they'd already be in. So you have no way to blame but yourself at the end of the day for this. It is what it is. I still expect Detroit to go out there and play their best no matter what happens. So, and the good news from it is we now get to watch both games. So if Seattle does win, you now get to turn your full focus on Detroit Green Bay. You don't have to worry about trying to follow two games at once, which can kind of be a mess when you want your team to win, but you're focused on something else at the same time. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. If Seattle doesn't get in, they don't get in. That's just, how it goes. So for this game, I wouldn't really say a preview. This is probably more just what we're looking at. Seattle probably should beat the Rams. They are the better team. They're 6-point favorites for a reason. Oh, and real quick, I'm not doing a Week 18 picks. Week 18 is just a mess. And I'm honestly lost with some of what's going on in the AFC. I don't know who's in what position and who needs what to happen there to make things clinch. So I'm not doing Week 18 picks. Week 18 is just too much of a mess. I don't know who's starting, who's sitting, guys. I'm not going to go through and look at every team, find out who's doing that. So there's a reason Week 18 doesn't happen in fantasy. There are some games that obviously have huge importance, but I'm not paying attention to I'm not doing a Week 18 pick. Like I said, with the AFC, I'm not even sure what needs to happen now with this whole AFC Championship neutral site thing and the bye and not the bye. I don't even know what's happening in the AFC, to be honest. So I'm not doing any pick'ems for Week 18. But getting back to Seattle, like I said, there's a reason they're favored by 6 points. The Rams are still pretty much decimated by injury. No Aaron Donald this week. No Ben Skoranek, who's been one of their better receiving options now, obviously with all the injuries they've suffered there. And there's, I think Troy Hill's back. There's another corner I think that is out though. So yeah, this is a banged up Rams team that I do think Seattle should beat. In fact, I would probably take Seattle minus a 6. That doesn't guarantee anything though either. You've got a Rams team that still very well coached by Sean McVay. They've been very Jekyll and Hyde the last month since Baker Mayfield took over. They beat the Raiders. I don't want to say they played well defensively and their offense came alive in the end. They dominate Denver. They lose at Green Bay. No real shame there. That's a tough place to play on Monday night. And they lose to the Chargers. They're clearly a team that is well coached enough that when they're playing mediocre bad teams, they can hang in there and win the game. They're probably not good enough to take on the big dogs in the league. They're just not talented enough right now. But they're well coached enough that they're going to give their best effort and play tough against teams that are probably just a little bit above them. And truth of the matter is, Seattle's probably in that category. Seattle's not a ton different from the Raiders. Now, I'm not saying overall they're similar teams. They kind of are, but in that mold of mediocre. I put Seattle maybe a tier above the Raiders, but it's kind of that same mindset. There's no reason the Rams can't play Seattle tough. The Seahawks have flaws. You can run the football on them. You can move the ball on them. The offense is really good, really talented. It's a little banged up, and it does have hot and cold streaks. So the Rams are very capable of staying in this game. It wouldn't be the greatest upset of all time if the Rams came in and won. I'm sure they'd love nothing more than to ruin Seattle's season here in the final week of the season. But with that said, like I said, with no Aaron Donald and some of the injuries, I think Baker Mayfield is an upgrade over John Wolford, but I still don't view Baker Mayfield as all that great of a quarterback. I think he's in a really good system. And Seattle's defense has played better the last few weeks. They did a nice job on the Jets. Clearly, Mike White was banged up, but they still were able to get pressure on him and hold that Jets passing game in check, which has some good receivers that the Rams just don't have. Seattle did a pretty good job on Cam Akers the first time these two teams played. The Rams used a lot of motion, a lot of, I don't want to say gimmicky plays because that implies something bad, but they used a lot of pre-snap motion at the snap, a lot of fake jet sweeps, a lot of inside jet sweeps, or I guess that wouldn't be a jet sweep, but an inside zone jet, whatever run you want to call it, where the receiver take go the middle, a lot of fakes with that, a lot of screens. They didn't ask John Wolford to push the ball down the field at all. And they didn't have to because they were in the game. Just like I talked about last week with the Jets, the reason we were able to get some of that, pressure on Mike White and force the turnovers, Seattle was able to get that big lead, and it took the Jets out of their game plan. In the first Rams-Seahawks game, the Rams never had to deviate from their game plan because they were never more than one score behind. So, and it's easier said than done, but if you can get that multiple score lead, you kind of force the Rams' hand. They're going to get away from some of the gimmicky stuff, and hopefully you can, get a fairly convincing win against the Rams. Not saying it's going to happen, not saying that that's necessarily the way it's going to go, but I do think Seattle's capable of it. Hopefully some of these defensive improvements are for real. All in all, Seattle does come in relatively healthy in this game. Sounds like Tyler Lockett's going to go. I mean, we know he's not 100%, but he will go. Kenneth Walker's going to go. Sounds like Ryan Neal still won't be there, but I don't think against the Rams it's as big of a deal. Thought Jonathan Abrams played pretty well last week, all things considered. Woods is healthy. I mean, again, none of these guys are healthy, but they're all playing through it. For the most part, there was a few other guys that were questionable, but I don't think there was anything I think Damian Lewis or Phil Haynes was questionable as well. Sounds like Abraham Lucas will be back. That's good to see. I think a week off was good for him. Should hopefully his last few games hadn't been as good. Granted, one of those was against the Niners. Their defense is just amazing. But hopefully that week off, Pete Carroll said I think it did him some good, so he should be able to get back in there and be fine. So there was something else I wanted to add about this game, but I completely forgot what it was. But yeah, that's kind of where this game stands. I think, hopefully Seattle learned from some of those things on film. Now, with the gimmick jet sweeps and all the stuff I talked about, and they're a little more alert to that this week. Now, Baker Mayfield does have a better ability to push the football than John Wolford does, so you have to be a little cautious. Mayfield's much more likely to be able to push the ball down the field, and I'm sure they will try that a little bit more. I think Seattle should be able to kind of man up and stop this Rams running attack. That will be important for them. You don't want to let them get anything going on the ground and put Baker in second and third and shorts and allow them to convert there. Seattle's red zone defense was much better last week, too. The overall defense was good, but even when the Jets did get down there, they either forced long field goals and just kept them out of the end zone in general. So hopefully they're able to do that again. A weak offensive line for the Rams, being on the road, maybe that they struggle a little bit there too with snap counts and stuff. You got to figure, usually the pass rushes tend to do better at home. That's because they have a little bit quicker get off because of the crowd noise and everything like that. Offenses have to go to silent counts, things, so it helps the pass rush get going. So hopefully they can get a little more pressure than they did on the Rams last time. I do think Seattle wins. I got something like 23-10 is kind of where I'm at with this game. I think the Rams defense holds their own. I think they come in there and they play with pride. This is a Rams team that's played with a lot of pride. They are the defending Super Bowl champs. Now, that team doesn't match anything they're going out right now, but it is a defending Super Bowl champ, so I expect them to play with a lot of pride. Bobby Wagner's return to Seattle, I expect a standing ovation for Bobby. Big difference between the Bobby Wagner return and the Russell Wilson return. I'm not going to get into all that. I think you know why, but I expect Bobby Wagner to get a standing ovation. I would give him one 100%. Hopefully he doesn't have a good game because that would mean that maybe the Rams win the game. But yeah, that's about all I got. I got Seattle 23-10. As far as the Lions and Packers game, listen, if we're going that far, I'll take the Lions. I say the Lions go in there and win 24-21 over Green Bay, and it gets Seattle in. So we'll see what happens. One game at a time. You hope Seattle wins. That keeps you alive. You go into Sunday night with a chance. Literally, what is it? 200? Well, it used to be 256. 272? Game 272? I don't know. You hope game 272 matters. And you know what? You would have told any Seahawks fan at the beginning of the year they have a chance to go in the final Sunday night football game of the year with a chance to make the playoffs. They probably would have signed up. They would have said, no way. We were all happy they beat Denver. And kind of like, you know what? We beat Denver. We beat Russ. That's it. I don't care about anything else. And now they've gone ahead and they're guaranteed a top 5 pick, and they have a chance to make the playoffs. So a good year for the Seahawks no matter what happens. I'll be back tomorrow with a post game. I'll try and do a quick post game after the Seahawks game, before the Lions Packers, and then we'll do one after Lions Packers if Seattle wins. If Seattle loses, that'll be the post game, and that'll be it because Lions Packers won't matter for the Seahawks. So there'll be no need to make a post game after that Lions Packers game. But if Seattle wins, we'll do the post game. It'll probably be quick. Then we'll do a more in-depth post game after Lions and Packers, either breaking down Seattle's possible playoff matchup a little bit or kind of a salute to the season. So go Hawks as always. Please like, please comment, please subscribe. Again, a lot of my views come from non-subs, so if you could hit that subscribe button, it means a lot to me. And as always, have a good one, guys. Peace.